What's up, YouTube? It's Finney here with Finney's Fishing. And today we're talking fishing line. But before I get started, I got a quick shout out to Katie Wolkin. Thank you for making me this beard. Yes, she made it herself. Wasn't store-bought, nothing like that. Thank you. I love it. Keeps my face warm since I don't have an actual beard anymore. By the way, make me others and I will wear them. I promise. So, back to today's topic. We are talking fishing line. So, I've got spools of each in front of me. It's not really important. This is the one where you don't really need too many examples. But the first one we're going to talk about is monofilament. Some of the things that separates monofilament from the rest are price. It's one of the cheaper lines out there, which, by the way, there's 3 different types of line: mono, floral, and braid. So monofilament is one of the oldest types of fishing line, if not the oldest. One of the traits of it is it reflects water, so it is visible in water. However, monofilament tends to float unless something actually pulls it down, which is important because if you're fishing something that you want up on the top, or to actually float, you're not going to want the fishing line kind of pulling it down. So that's a quick rundown of monofilament. Fluorocarbon does cost a little more, but there are several differences between mono and floral. So monofilament will actually stretch. Fluorocarbon will stretch as well, but not nearly as much. What's that mean? That means fluorocarbon is going to be more sensitive. But wait, how can we have a line that's a snowflake? It's not a snowflake. When I say more sensitive, what I mean is you can feel more. You can feel what's going on with your fishing lure, whatever your bait is. You can feel it more with fluorocarbon than you can monofilament. Why is that? Because let's say you got a fish and a real light bite. You're not going to feel that as much as on monofilament, because mono will kind of stretch and give a little bit to help absorb the impact. Fluorocarbon will not stretch as much, so you're going to feel more of that impact. Same way if you're dragging a bait on the bottom. It's going to feel kind of gummy almost with monofilament, because that monofilament is going to be constantly stretching. Where the fluorocarbon's not going to stretch as much, and you're going to know, you're going to feel the hard bumps of, rocks, and then you can feel a much bigger difference between bumps and actual fish bites. And that difference is a lot more evident with fluorocarbon than monofilament, because a fish bite on mono, it's going to kind of stretch and give a little to lessen that impact, where fluorocarbon, it's not going to stretch as much. So another difference is fluorocarbon tends to be tougher. By that I mean it can actually handle being rubbed up against rocks, caught under stuff like that, where monofilament doesn't. You get a nick in you get a nick in either of them, and it's going to increase your chances of having a line break. But if you get a nick in monofilament, it's going to stretch and snap right away. Fluorocarbon, maybe not right away, but it's still going to snap. It's a weak point. But this holds up better to being dragged across rocks and that kind of stuff. Monofilament will get nicked like crazy. Does not handle that. It doesn't really like to slide across rocks and stuff. So the other big difference between monofilament and fluorocarbon tends to let more light through. Monofilament doesn't. Monofilament actually reflects that light. So what happens underwater, monofilament kind of looks shiny. And in some cases, that's okay. If you're going after fish that don't spook easy, that's all right. But there are fish out there that spook very easily. They see the shiny and they get scared. And they run and, you know, bam, you just spooked the fish in your area. You might as well just leave. Fluorocarbon, because it lets that light through, tends to be invisible or almost invisible underwater. So if you're fishing for, let's say, carp, they spook pretty easily, to the point where if they even feel a hook in their mouth, they'll spit it out. You would want fluorocarbon over monofilament. So the next type of fishing line is braid. Now this is actually a hybrid. It is actually coated with fluorocarbon. I honestly don't know why. I think more for like even abrasion control and to make it cast easier. Braid is, as the name suggests, it is braided fibers. This does not stretch at all. So it is the strongest. It is also the most abrasive resistant. And it's really durable. So, as you can see, I don't think I've ever seen a clear braid. So this is very visible underwater. So something that I've been doing lately, and it's actually been getting me results, is I have braid on my bait caster now. This actual braid is on my bait caster. I have a fluorocarbon leader. Now what's that mean? That means I've spooled up most of my reel with braid, and then the last foot or so, I think I actually have 2 foot, is fluorocarbon. That way I still get the strength and durability of the braid, but I get the invisibility of the fluorocarbon. So I have my actual bait attached to the fluorocarbon. Now, that's a quick rundown of the differences in the lines. Now let's talk about the biggest difference. Each of these lines, it's all made with different test pounds. What that means is, so this is a 12-pound test line. I think this is a 15 to 16. This one's 50 pounds. That basically means how much these can handle. Now that doesn't mean, oh, this can only handle up to a 12-pound fish. No. It refers to how much tensile strength. So something else you have to think of when buying fishing line is your reel. So if you ever buy a fishing reel, let's say a spinner off of Amazon, and it has a drop down for I think it's Style. They actually make spinner reels in up to I think 4 or 5 different versions. So it's usually like Like, for example, my Revo X spinner reel. I had the option of buying an X10, X20, X30, and I think it's an X40. It might be 35. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But basically what that refers to is the type of line that spool is made for. So, for example, let's go with the Revo X10. It's designed for a much smaller, thinner line. The actual spool on it is going to be shorter and smaller. So it's not going to be able to hold as much, say, 30-pound fluorocarbon as it would be able to hold, let's say, 6-pound monofilament. Because that heavier line is thicker. So it's going to take up more space. Now, the Revo X40, that's going to be able to hold more of that fatter line than the smaller one. So that's something you need to think about, because at the same time, you really don't need 50-pound fluorocarbon for panfish or bluegill. You would want a smaller line, which means you're going to need a smaller reel. Not necessarily need, but you can get away with using a smaller reel, and you can get away with getting a lighter power rod as well, a light or a very light. So this is where everything comes together. Is, you know, the type of fishing line you buy depends on the type of rod you're putting it on. Scratch that, not rod, the type of reel you're putting that on. The type of reel you're getting is going to depend on what type of rod. At the same time, you also have to keep in mind, what are you fishing for? If you're just fishing to fish, you know, yeah, you can get a medium action rod, a spinner that's like a 30 or 40, and you can get away with using 12, 14, 16-pound monofilament. Monofilament is very good for variety. It's also cheap. It's easy to get a hold of. However, let's say you're catfishing. You're not going to want a light reel, a light rod, and a light line. Catfish tend to be heavier. They don't really have teeth, but their lip is more like heavy sandpaper. Which, when one fights, it's shaking its head and everything, and that's gonna rub on the line. And if you use a light line, it's gonna shred it, and you're gonna lose that fish. You're gonna lose that catfish if your pole doesn't break first. So you're gonna want a heavy action rod, a bigger reel, and much heavier line. Catfish aren't very picky. If it looks like food, they're going to eat it, and they probably won't spit it out. But this is where, if you're fishing for specific things, if you're target fishing, your combo and what you put on your combo could mean landing a fish or the fish getting away. That's why everything is important. And, it matters if you're target fishing. One thing I will touch on real quickly before I end the video is the life of the line. A lot of it comes down to how much use. Braid will last a lot longer than your mono and fluoro because your braid won't actually decompose as fast. Typically, your mono and fluoro, you're going to want to change out every 2 years. Just from use, It's going to stretch, and it's going to decompose, and it will probably break on you much faster. That being said, I think that's all I have for today's video. So I'm not gonna. You guys know the drill. So I'm not gonna do the whole like, subscribe, comment. And again, shout out to Katie. Thank you, Katie. I love the beard. I do have some things in the work. Some things in the pipeline I'm really excited about, and I cannot wait to get it done and show you guys. Shout out to that once it's done. I'm not going to do that now, though. But that being said, that's all I got today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the water.